It had been 5 months, and every day seemed longer than the last. Relying on only an automated lighting system to separate day from night can do that after a while. I remember watching old films back on Earth about people stranded on desert islands, who had to survive on coconuts and crudely cooked indigenous fauna. I can honestly say that I now understand how they felt. Though, unlike them, my food supply was limited to the kitchen freezers, which somehow managed to survive the journey. In fact, the heating system was still up and running too. No hull breaches and pressurization was still holding. Water pressurization was fine. It was enough to make me wonder if some god out there wanted me to live. What for, I can't even begin to imagine. Still, I've never liked the idea of suicide. We all lived each day knowing that death was the end of the line. So, what made my situation any different? Maybe I was wrong in assuming mankind's extinction. For all I knew, we really did find another home. We could have left Earth behind over a century ago. Maybe someone figured out the error and didn't give us up for dead. Maybe their descendants were searching for us. With my state of affairs, it was hard to be optimistic. But I had to hang on to something. In the meantime, I did my best to keep my mind occupied. My days fell into routine. Wake up, exercise, shower, eat, sleep, and other health essentials. I also took care of a few things which could no longer be ignored. I patched up some of the minor damage and disarray, addressed some of the needed system maintenance that I could handle, and generally did whatever I could to keep my home and prison fit enough to let me live in as long as possible. Eventually, I got around to disposing of the bodies in cryo-storage. It was a miserable job, but I still took my time with it. Before I closed each crate and jettisoned it into the vacuum of space, I gave the contained crew member a proper moment of silence. I would honor their memories and would not close the lid until I could remember each of their names, not in a verbal sense, as their cryo-storage pods displayed their names quite clearly. Rather, in a personal sense, in a sense which I could remember addressing them. Nobody should die without a name. I saved the kid for last. James. I closed my eyes and spoke his name aloud, over and over, never satisfied with how briefly the sound hung on the air. When I finally opened my eyes, I found his head turned towards me, staring at me, unblinking. The sight startled me at first, but he wasn't breathing. By some final, gruesome spasm of the nerves that I would never medically understand. It was his final action. His eyes were a crystalline blue, and I regarded them for a while before gently closing them. I told myself again that it had to be some final spark of the nervous system. But how could it have been? He had died months before, and I watched his neural activity stop completely. Yet, just as I closed that lid, I swear that the low-hanging light touched and shimmered in the dampness of a single tear spilling down his cheek. That was the first manifestation of my encroaching madness. I guess its progress can be delayed for a time, but it inevitably finds you. In the months crawling by, it finally started to catch up with me. I kept up my normal routine at first, but More obsessive and neurotic behaviors slowly worked their way into the mix. I'd spend nights awake, sometimes curled into a ball at the foot of my bed, sometimes in the corner. Sometimes I talked to myself, not with delusions of other people in the room, but long monologues, just to fill the unbearable silence. Then, after a while, the monologues started to become conversations. Worst of all, I began to neglect my healthier habits in favor of spending hours seated before my comlink software, listening to hollow static and praying to hear a human voice. I would cycle through frequencies in desperate search of some type of connection. Any connection. I stopped eating, lost sleep, and often passed out at my console to the white noise lullaby of the open comm channel. After a while, I didn't care whether or not the voice on the other end could help me, or even if it wanted to. I didn't even care if the voice was human. I just wanted to know that somewhere, anywhere, someone or something other than myself still lived. And I regretted it from the moment I heard that first ghostly whisper.